Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados.
Because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Bill.
And welcome to this week's episode 77 of Adventures in Mousecapades. This week, we're going to ponder whether being a parent left at home with an 11-year-old while their spouse and daughter are off to Paris for 10 days counts as a Home Alone type scenario. I'm kind of leaning towards it does, but I'm not exactly sure which role I'm playing. I think I might be Kevin. I'm just saying. It's been fun.
Kevin? I don't think it's... No, we're not talking about Clerks 3. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so there's this guy that you may be hearing here that he comes up on our podcast not infrequently. His name's Bill. I am usually talking to him and making snide comments on the podcast and very much so off the podcast as well. He's one half of the power couple that just so happen to be our very best friends. And in true Adventures in Mousecapades fashion, we met on a Disney cruise back in September of 2017. You can hear all about that. Well, no, you can hear some of those details if you listen to episode 50. There's a lot that we're not going to get into on the record, for sure. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Bill used to have one of the very best office locations you could ever imagine, above the Main Street Confectionery in Magic Kingdom. Bill is a master storyteller and has a ton of Disney tales he can tell, though several of them are definitely not going to make it on our podcast. But we're going to try and share a few of the ones that are family-friendly today and get a peek behind the scenes of what makes a Disney cast member tick. So, welcome, Bill. Thanks for joining.
Nate, thank you for letting me do this finally after several years of these podcasts.
It's only been a year and a half.
It's 77, though. I could have been like 33 or something, but no, I'm 77. I feel a little left out, but we're going to do this. Let's do this today.
It's an honor because I was born in 77, so I figured this is kind of like the rebirth of the podcast. I don't know. I'm stretching there. Never mind.
You're just sad because you're younger than I am. You're just trying to show my age. I get it. It doesn't matter. It's fine.
I'm younger and better looking, which doesn't say too much about either of us.
It's not about the hair. It's really not about the hair. Seriously. It's not about the hair. But if you want to go there, it's fine. You had a special week this week. You had a special week. We're going to let it slide. What about the hair? It's fine.
So I'm not going to ask you about your, we usually start off a podcast and say, hey, what's your Disney travel history and all the rest of that. Obviously, as a cast member for what? It was about a decade or so, wasn't it?
Well, almost 12 years.
Almost 12 years. I mean, literally, that's what we're here to talk about. So we'll kind of get into that as we go through the conversation. But just kind of to start off, like, who the heck are you? Where did you come from?
I came from a little town, Haverhill, where I come from in Massachusetts. Always been a Disney fan since I was a little kid because of my parents. So parents are a little bit older when they had me. Oops, child, as somebody would call it. So when my dad used to come back from Vietnam, my brothers and sisters, they always used to get free tickets to Disneyland. So it's always been something that's within my family structure, positive, something that's always been there, and something that just kind of was instilled in me. Yeah. And obviously, living on the East Coast, it's a little bit different, It was a long time before I got to Disneyland. But, yeah, so, the Disney culture and Walt and all of that, I guess, positivity and the respect that my parents had for them doing what they did back in the day when, military folk were coming back and it wasn't always positive to give them tickets. It always landed pretty strong to them and something they instilled into me. So it's something that's always been probably foundationally in my life, you know. So it's always been good. I remember the days when my parents got me cable for my bedroom and I had the Disney Channel. So that was a little while ago, like 10, 15, 20, 30, maybe 40. It was a while ago.
It was a while.
It was a bit, and then there's just crazy people on MTV. I don't know what's going on, but no,
Wait,
so it's always been there.
Your town actually allowed you to have MTV on cable? That was a big deal from our cable system.
There was 12 channels on that little slider thing on the cable box on my TV, but no. So it's been a big part of my life, and it's always been a goal as well. Things change as you get older, and you see things in a different life, but still always a goal.
So I know, you started out outside Boston, and we're going to say it right on this podcast, Boston. You spent some time, you spent some time out in California. What eventually got you off to Florida?
So my parents they were 40 when they had me. So if you think about early, mid 70s, people that were 40 years old weren't supposed to have kids. Yeah. Roe v. Wade and all that. But that's like, even the doctor's like, yeah, this is probably not a good idea, because back then they didn't know. So my parents retired, when I moved out to California. And my brothers and sisters probably weren't in a place to maybe take care of our parents. And I was kind of done with California. The West Coast is beautiful. It's some of the most beautiful places on the planet, but people are a little nuts. So I need a little grounding, yeah?
Yeah.
Seriously, $5.50 a gallon right now out west. I don't understand.
For gas. I know. I'm sorry.
Seriously, move closer to the refineries. I'm just saying. But someone needed to keep an eye on them, because retired people are crazy. So someone had to keep an eye on them. So I moved to Florida, and initially I didn't go to Disney. I actually got a great job at Cracker Barrel serving. It was kind of fun. Because at that point, Disney was doing all these layoffs, but it was a restructuring. But eventually, actually, one of the scuba divers at Living Seas, he came into my Cracker Barrel that I was working at, and he's like, dude, you're super nice, and like, whatever, why are you not working at Disney? I'm like, that's always been a goal. And he's like, but no, seriously, why aren't you there? And so I was like, it's because you guys just fired a whole bunch of people. And he's like, no, that's not the frontline people. And I'm like, okay. So he gave me his card, and off to casting I went. And that's an interesting story. I can tell that one too if we want, but it was an interesting story, because I might have had a resume that went with it. So but that's where it started.
You had a lot of varied experiences going into Disney.
Yes.
What was your first role? So obviously you got the job. What was your first gig?
I was actually a street sweeper associated to a food and beverage location. And this was pre-2011 or 2001. Sorry, bad decades. Actually, so when I first got there, I was a street sweeper. So that means I got to keep all the tables clean. I got to take out the trash, make sure the tables are clean, obviously. And there wasn't a lot of full-timers, so they gave me the option to take care of the lake region, Lake Echo region at the complex, or sorry, Disney Hollywood Studios, or I don't know what it's formally called now. It used to be just the studios, but it could be something different now. But so Min and Bill's is the boat, and then I had to take care of the whole lake.
Got it.
So my job was to make sure the tables are clean, the trash is pulled, all that fun stuff. And I did that as because I was the only person that went over there, because I was actually attached to the whole region in front of Tower Terror and all that stuff. So I was kind of like I was an offcast. So because I would go over there, it was fine. It's all good.
That's a huge area to cover, though. Like, if you're attached out of the tower, but you're actually around the lake, that's a far poke.
Yeah. So the funny thing is so it's called the Sunset region at the time, Sunset Marketplace. At that time, it was one of the biggest food and beverage regions in all of the Disney parks. So we had coffee carts, and we had the Min and Bill area. We had all of Sunset. So we were one of the biggest areas at the time, which actually helped me in my, I guess, career path, because, we had a lot of going ons. Yeah. So, but no, so I was a food and beverage guy, or no, I'm sorry, sweeper guy
Yeah.
that took care of Echo Lake at that time. So yeah.
You've told a story about you lending, we'll say, your artistic side to that job and doing some drawings. Can you share that story?
So it was early on, and I used to do the water thing. That it's kind of commonplace now, but back then it wasn't. Where you get the guy in the whites, is what we used to call him. So there's two parts to that. There's actual people that do that, and they have to clean bathrooms. I didn't have to clean bathrooms. Very, 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 very important to understand that. I just had to wipe tables and pull trash. So there's a big difference. But we would do Mickeys and fun stuff with drawing that on the ground. Yeah. So I learned that from somebody, actually an old guy, been around a long time. He showed it to me, and that was kind of a fun thing to do. Because it's about the people that are sitting around, and they're in between adventures, I guess. And when you can make that magic happen, it's actually so much fun. So I learned it from an old guy. Actually, he's passed, but that's where I learned it, and that's kept it up for as long as I could. Yeah.
That's so cool. So if you haven't caught on yet, it's where the street maintenance folks will take a broom, dip it in water, and start drawing stuff on the ground. So I never knew you had a softer, more artistic side, Bill. But there we have it.
One of my favorite things early on was this was what, early 2001. Me and my buddy, he was actually full streets, and we figured out how to get our dustpan and broom to stand up straight up without holding it, right? So the two of us, we would literally sit on a park bench, and we'd put our dustpan and broom there, right? And the guests would roll up, and they'd be like, okay, these two are going to do something. And the two of us would sit on the park bench and just talk about whatever, I don't know, the turkey special at Take 5 or whatever was going on that day, right? And we would just sit there and, sorry, shoot the shit, sorry, beep. But it was kind of fun. And then we would sit there for like 10, 15 minutes, just, talking about the day, whatever. And by the time it would happen, we'd have like 20, 30, even more guests just standing around us because they thought we were part of the attraction. Right. You know what we would do? We would literally stand up and grab our dustpan and broom, and off we went. And the guests would just die laughing because they're like, oh no, they were just like, nope, they didn't know. And we could get away with that. It was so much fun because it's something so innocuous that people just chilling, you know? And they were like all in, they were invested for like 10, 15 minutes. They're like, oh no, they're just taking a break. We cool. And it was so much fun. So that was the kind of fun stuff I got to do when I was a cast member from an hourly perspective. That was amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome. So what was next after your kind of street sweeping and table hopping days?
So I'd only been with the company for probably like 4 or 5 months, and I heard of a project coming up where they're going to redesign the POS system, so point of sale, for everybody that's not fluent on IT, techie stuff. So I heard about this project where Disney's big, or they used to be, I don't know about today, but they used to be big in these TAs, so temporary assignment things. And I had a lot of experience of doing that between, I'm going to date myself, Circuit City and Southland, which is 7-Eleven, of working on kind of projects like that. So I put my name into the hat. And I didn't go through the official Rolodex Disney standard of how you're supposed to do that. And I got an interview. And of course, is a little arrogant, but kind of crushed the interview. And I got picked. So basically it was for the food and beverage replacement of the POS system across all of Walt Disney World, which at that time was not only obviously all the parks here in Orlando, but it was all of the DVC sites across that we had at the time. There's two. There was the one here in Florida and the one up in South Carolina, and as well as the cruise ships.
Oh, wow.
So to redesign all of that. So anyways, I got the job, and So the big leader of the Sunset region like just tore me one like a couple of days later, and he's like, "Yeah, you got an offer here, man. Like that's some crap. Like, how did you get this?" And I'm like, "Well, like I got kind of a little bit of skill. This is my first dance at the rodeo, so I ended up going to this TA role where we designed, developed, and implemented the POS system that's used both in food and beverage and merchandise today. From a systems perspective, if for those technical people out there, we basically took a smaller company, we redesigned, implemented, and developed design to handle our piece of it. Where from a POS perspective, normally it's a general box and everything reports back to the box, and everything we did was network based, so that printing, reporting, everything was more, I'm not going to use the word cloud because I don't agree with clouds, but something a little more virtual than what we did before. So
decentralized, a little more flexible.
Exactly. So I was on that project. So a lot of work, tons of work, actually. I was probably working about 70, 80, 90 hours a week for a good 2.5 years. And deal with the fun politics that goes along with Disney. So that was fun. So the receipt definition, so the way the receipts look today is still my design at Walt Disney World. And the cruise line, if they're using the same system, as well as, this is better, Universal Studios, because they bought into the same company as well as California. So there's my useless tidbit of fame. So if you ever get a receipt, domestically at Universal or Walt Disney World, and you see, that's a pretty receipt, thank you. I spent a pretty decent amount of time in my life working on that and dealing with the union and management and everybody else to make it look like that. So thank you for that.
Exactly. At least it's not the Walgreens one that like takes 3 trees to print out a single receipt. So we'd have words.
Sadly enough, they've expanded that a little bit more, because before I started, it was getting into the Walgreens world, where, if you click here or whatever, and we didn't have all that stuff back then. But they've gone a little deep since I've been there. I'll be honest with you. So like every time seriously, we're killing trees. And the sad part of it is, and I know you're from the West Coast, that is plastic coated paper. We can't recycle that. So that's just not good. But anyways, we were trying to minimize it when I did it, and then stupid happened. So anyways.
What was next?
So obviously, I would say for any person at Disney, it still holds true a little bit today. It's about your network. It's about your Rolodex. Mm-hmm. For those young people, that's when you put a bunch of people that you know into your iPhone with numbers and stuff, so you can actually get back to them. It was an actual physical thing when I was a kid. But
right, the company was called Rolodex.
Exactly, it was.
And you had special formatted cards that fit into special. Hey, we're old. I'm just realizing that.
Yeah. Anyways, so working through all the foods people, I always wanted to get into management. So basically, I was able to build a Rolodex that allowed me to get into food and beverage management. So I became a frontline food and beverage manager. I started off at Epcot. Okay. Yeah. And then from there, I went to All-Star Sports. It was pretty cool, though. He's actually working at Great Wolves. He's a pretty cool guy. So Great Wolves, for those people out west, is these weird little resort things on the East Coast.
Oh, we have them out here, too.
You got the Great Wolves out there, too?
Yeah, there's one an hour and a half south of here. So
yeah, he's kind of a bigwig there, but he hired me literally because I insulted him in an interview. So
that seems like a very Bill thing to do.
Yeah, it was pretty much. He goes, because I called him a punk in the interview, and he goes, I'm hiring this guy someday. So I went from Epcot to All-Star. And that's how I got that job.
You were in purchasing for a little while too, right? So was that after Frontline?
Yeah. So the Frontline thing is interesting. It's a long haul for all those people that do it. You have to Yeah, you got to do a lot to go through all of that, and I didn't have it
Yeah.
in me, and I know that I needed to go back to school, and I'd
Mm.
just been recently married, um, to the best boss I've ever had. Um, so yeah, so went back to school, downgraded myself into it's called a receiver at
Hmm.
Disney from a food and beverage perspective. So basically, in the middle of the night, I go out and cover food and beverage locations and count all the food we have and kind of plan for the next day and do all that fun stuff. So I did all
Got it.
that fun stuff when I went back to school full time.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we skipped a very important story, though, that I
Mm.
think is worth telling here.
Uh,
How did you and your best friend meet?
so goes back to that sunset thing when I was sweeping streets and I was always bored. Like still today, Nate knows this. Like no, Bill will cook, clean, fix, do whatever he needs to do
Uh-huh.
because I get bored pretty quick. So
I know. When are you coming back? I have a couple projects we didn't quite get to.
I don't know about this Alaska airline thing, dog. Like seriously, it's okay. British Airways is better. I'm just saying from different work
That's fair.
experience. But so I became a cashier eventually because I was always trying to help people out, and then I became a head cashier, which used to be, I'm not 100% sure still, but it's probably still here. It's called a general teller or GT. And basically my job was to cash everybody out at the end of the night and balance all the different receipts, which led to the IT job. Because we were such a big location, we had so many. But yeah, it was late January, early February 2002. And there's this little girl that came along. Yeah. And she was like, hey, I need tens. So she, puts down a couple $100 because she wants tens for her register. And I'd already counted the safe, which, it's a little bit. When you work at Disney, numbers are a little bit different. Yeah, it's kind of big numbers in cash you have to count every day. But
Yeah.
so she wanted tens, so I gave her a pile of fives. And she gave me some attitude because she goes, no, I asked for tens, and I'm like, well, two fives actually add up to 10. So how about you just keep trucking? Because I already counted the safe, and I'm not dealing with that right now. Beep. So yeah, and then later, I think it was that night, we ended up at Chili's because Chili's quesos and salsas is an amazing thing.
Sure.
Even to this day, that is a recipe they have not messed with. It's probably cheaper, hopefully now than it was in the past, but still magic. Because you work at Disney at hourly, like that was some serious digs.
Yeah.
So we ended up with some friends, and we just spent the whole night talking, and then I took her to. Oh, you ready for this? I took her to get a steak and cheese on our first date at Pleasure Island, in a place that no longer exists.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Next thing you know, I don't know, a couple of decades later, actually 20 plus years, we're still together, and that's how it worked.
You guys actually got married on property, right?
Yeah, we did the big Disney thing. So thanks to Rachel's dad, Father's Day for everybody that's looking out. Dads sometimes surprise you. For stuff that you wouldn't expect. But so we got married at the wedding pavilion, which I actually got engaged to her at the wedding pavilion by complete accident, but I had a bunch of friends. Not a good story. We'll tell that story on the next podcast. How about we go for 177 for that one? So we got married with a church in the background and, the castle in the background. We did all that. And we had our reception at the Living Seas, and I was a foods manager, so a bunch of leeway. And we actually had the opportunity, and we had a dessert party outside of the UK.
Oh, wow.
Normally they don't let this happen, but we were allowed to walk from the Living Seas over to the UK, which was absolutely magic. Just imagine all those little girls at Epcot. And there's the actual princess walking through. Like, I really can't. And it has to do with the network we had and all the friends we had, but an amazing situation. But yeah, no, so that was 2005. There was college things. She's a Baylor Bear, Sikkim Bears. But it all started off with she wanted 5s or 10s, my bad, versus 5s. But math overrules. It's one of those things. I don't know if it's a Newtonian law. I don't think so. He only really had 3 laws, but it's all good.
Bill, you eventually ended up doing some stuff at the water parks. I don't think that was sweeping the streets and moving the sand back into the pool. What the heck did you do at the water parks there at Disney?
So I was actually the finance guy in charge of the water park. So it's called business partner at that time. So if you can imagine all the operational folk that run around trying to make everything magic and make sure that every guest that comes through the gate has a blast. And they are amazing people, and I've done that on a personal level. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Well, sadly enough, Disney's a publicly traded company, so there has to be someone like looking at should we really do that? And so that was my job, was to keep.
Wow.
I think at the time there was 3,500 people I work with, making decisions at the times just to make sure, everything made sense. Probably one of my favorite stories from the water parks, minus the cast, was I had a GSM. So back in the day when I worked in foods, those are the frontline managers that everybody has to deal with. You might get to an area leader, but you're going to deal with they're called guest service managers. So I had a guy from operations that came up to me, and he's like, I got the best idea ever. And I'm like, what's this idea? He's like, I got the best plan ever. And I'm like, okay, what's your plan? Tell it to me. He's like, we should go to double ply toilet paper. And I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, I think it'll work out in the bathrooms. So people will use less toilet paper. And I'm like, they're all wet, right? Like, so what are we talking about here? And he's like, no, I think this will work out. And I'm like, all right, so how much toilet paper we go through a year? And he goes, it's about this. And I'm like, okay, well, if we go to double ply, how much more is that going to cost? And I'm like, so you want to spend $250,000 so people that are wet might have a better experience? And I could go a lot deeper here, but we're trying to keep the beeps down.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen, big dog. I'm just not going to allow that. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, no, but I think it could make their experience better. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Just saying. Because it does all get flushed down. Just saying. But there's a good story.
For the record, though, Bill, I'm with the other dude. Like, that would make my experience at Disney way better. So basically, you're part of the problem. So thanks.
Yeah, but about $600,000 a year. You want to pay for that on your nuggets, or where do you want to pay for that? Because where do we want to pay for that? Because I just have to put that somewhere else, right? So where do we want to pay? You on the ticket prices, or I don't know, on the donuts that are magical? Because we could push it to the other people that aren't actually Disney and offset there, and we need to increase the profitability. Where do we want to put the $600,000? No, not worth it. Just saying.
For you've had a bunch of different roles at Disney. What was the most intellectually challenging role or project that you worked on?
So when I was at the Magic Kingdom in finance, we were trying to figure out a way to make the guest experience a little bit better. And
2-ply toilet paper was not in the cards.
No, this is way pre 2-ply. So I was on the team that actually set up the Magic Kingdom hours.
Oh, wow.
And so we would have to make a bunch of decisions on what we would do within like a 2-week period of when things happened, whether we should expand the hours or not expand the hours based off the attendance that was coming in. And at the same time, I introduced, I don't want to get too mathy, a variable labor concept so that we could basically deal with the curves of attendance that came in.
Right.
Versus a very analog basis where it was very cut off and angular, yes, from a labor perspective. So when I introduced that, based on the curve, it was a regression thing, statistics, blah, blah. Yeah. Anyways, we could add and subtract labor in a different way.
Okay.
Which allowed us to add and subtract labor in a smart way. So if we needed to extend the hours or not extend the hours, and at the same standpoint, add spectaculars, which at the Magic Kingdom was more parades than fireworks. So whether we added spectral, which is not there anymore, but whether we added a second spectro, because I think everybody, a lot of the listeners you're going to have are going to tell you that like sometimes there was 2 spectral magics tonight and 1 spectral magic. And well, when we got to a certain attendance level, because of the math that I did, we were allowed to add an extra.
Interesting. Which
really helped in the guest experience. So that they would stay in the parks a little bit longer, which ends up in finance terms, we end up more money, but the guest experience was better.
Yeah.
Because of a concept called ride per cap. Yeah,
sure.
So we could, 177, we could probably kill that, and I could explain that in a different concept too. But basically it allowed us to do things a little bit more reactive. And it wasn't as much, 10,000, 20,000, 15,000 guests. It was a little more gradual in that.
Right.
Because anytime you did that, there's an impact. Right. So anytime you kept the park open longer, there was an impact to foods, merch, the guys sweeping the streets and cleaning the bathrooms and all that other stuff. So that was probably one of the biggest things from a guest impact perspective in the big parks.
Yeah. So you were basically modeling when did it make sense to add hours? When did it make sense to add events and things to keep people at the park versus all the marginal extra costs that doing all that stuff would, have in terms of, food and people and hours and consumables and all the rest of that stuff. You built a model based on all that.
Yes. And for all the stockholders, I did a pretty good job. So it's a little bit different now because, there's a lot of flux, but back in the early, late aughts, I did a pretty good job to make the stock prices, get near $100. It's not there now, but, it used to be.
Well, it's close.
So, yeah.
So I have a kind of a nerdy question.
Yes.
One of the cool things about Florida and specifically Magic Kingdom, better than Disneyland, is that they don't have to pay a fine to the city of Anaheim when you want to do fireworks in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
And so you're able to do kind of whatever the heck you want in Florida from a fireworks perspective. How much does a fireworks show ballpark cost for a Magic Kingdom fireworks show? And I realize, different shows, different types of pyro, like there's all sorts of variables and things like that involved, but like ballpark, what are we talking?
So first of all, and I'm going to get a little political, but thanks for Reedy Creek.
Yeah.
To allow us that ability to do what we need to do and do their part of the show. I'll use the show here, regardless of what was going on at this standpoint. And for all you conservatives out there that listen to the podcast, love you. It was probably at the time for a big one was probably around 12,000, 13,000.
Okay.
So when I say big one, that means 4th of July, New Year's Eve, whatever. On an average day, it was probably about 4,500 to 5,000.
Okay, got it.
So that's for, at that time, it was wishes.
Mm-hmm.
Because we got from Fantasy to Sky, which is actually more expensive than wishes.
Okay.
Today's world with all the, pictures on the thing, whatever. There's a capital expenditure that goes on the front of the sign so they can make all the pictures on the castle less fireworks. It's probably cheaper.
Right.
But at that time, we were 4,500 to 5,500 because I was the business partner for entertainment.
Right.
So, yeah, say $5,000.
Yeah.
5 to 7,500. Special parties, a little more. So anywhere between 5 and 12.
Got it.
It's probably a safe bet.
How long, just on average, did it take them to design and set up a new show? Do you remember?
Yeah, so Imagineering's a beautiful thing. From a business perspective, it's absolutely a nightmare. If you're the finance guy, they will spend a lot more than what we spend every night. But I would say probably 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
If you go back to the early aughts, mid-aughts, we had Pirates and Princess. And then we had, obviously, the standard Christmas. We had the standard Halloween stuff. But yeah, those probably took at least 12 to 18 months once they decided they were going to do it.
Wow.
To figure that out. And even some that failed. Like, so we had some Halloween ones that were just, they were at the studios. They were not good. And there was about 12, 18 months of Imagineering that took before they got to the fireworks. Never mind all the logistics of the candies and all the other hot chocolates or whatever else went on. But yeah, 12 to 18 months just on the fireworks. Yeah, most people don't realize that if you go to Walt Disney World, about 3.5, 4 miles northwest of the Magic Kingdom, there's essentially it's an ammo dump for all the military folk out there. They understand what an ammo dump is, where you have all these little huts, basically, where the ammo sits, so that if the ammo goes off, you don't have a problem. Well, we had one of those set up outside the Magic Kingdom, and that's the main site for all of the fireworks that come from China, because that's where we get the vast majority of them. That's where they do get most of their fireworks from, is China.
Right.
But if in theory it would ever explode at one point, not only would it encompass the Magic Kingdom, but it would put about a 10-mile hole in the state of Florida that's probably about 200 or 300 feet deep. Because basically at any one given point, the fireworks are about 6 to 8 months of all the necessary stock they need.
Oh my gosh.
Even including all of the spectaculars for 4th of July or whatever. Yeah, it's a big dump. But basically, if you've ever been to a military base where they have all these little huts with all the fireworks, it's about 3.5 miles outside of the Magic Kingdom to the northwest.
So you'd basically be able to like make another Lake Okeechobee, except it would be in Central Florida instead of Southern Florida.
Yeah, pretty much. It could be better for us too because of the pesticides and everything else we like to put on our grass, but it's not bad.
What role over your time at Disney do you look back with the most fondness on?
Sweeping streets.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sadly enough, it's not about decision making. It's about getting the thing done. And the most interaction I ever had with a guest is when there's a little kid eating a Mickey bar, sitting in a park bench.
Yeah.
And just talking to him. Or one of my favorite stories was 2 older people, probably in their 70s or 80s, just taking a break on a park bench. And you go talk to these people and you get to know them a little bit. And they're like, we've loved our lives and we really love to experience whatever we want to do. And I'm like, that's great, talking to these people. And they're like, we're going on a rock and roller coaster. Because we love a little bit of excitement. And that to me was the most amazing thing, because the kids are easy, but when you get to the older people, for all those Disney adults out there, you can't live as a kid. And there's too many times in our lives that we're not allowed to live through the guise of being a kid. But if you live your life, imagine 20, 30, 40 years from now, if you can actually live your life through the guise of when you were a little kid and still experience the same way, golden. Those are the magic people. And that's something I strive for every day of my life.
That's awesome. Is there a role or a project that you didn't get to do that you wish you could have?
Near the end, yeah. So it's actually one of the reasons I left the company. In the Disney lore, there's some magical things that happen, right? So Imagineering, if you're a true Disney fan, is where it's at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Walt did his thing back in the 50s. I had the opportunity to interview to get a finance job in Imagineering 3 times. And through corporate fun, I never got the job. Like the second 2 times I interviewed, I didn't even actually have to post for it. They just wanted me to interview it. And every single time it was, no, because, you know, we got to transfer people or do whatever it is politically. But for those people that ever get the experience to see the underbelly of Disney, in my opinion, I have a Magic Kingdom name tag. Hangs on my wall, which is the only way to get that is to actually work at the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World. I have one of those. Is to literally get a hard hat that is designed by Imagineers for who you are. I never got that. And yeah, it was one of those political things that happened, whatever. But that's the one thing I'm missing. For my career at Disney, I want to say that growing up as a kid that, you know, used to watch, you know, Walt talk about the Imagineers and the Disneyland project and the Walt, you know, the Florida project and all that stuff. When I was growing up as a kid, watching on cable with my 12 channels. That's the one thing I didn't get. And I've met a lot of people where I walk into their office, even today, and they got one of those sitting on their wall.
Yeah.
It's the one thing I didn't get.
If you were given the opportunity to have that role, would you go back?
No.
Moved on. That's fair.
I moved on. No, I moved on, but it's more importantly, you know what? That world wouldn't allow me to do what I did with you last week. See your beautiful daughter graduate from high school. All of the other stuff I've experienced in my life. I know that dedication and that drive and that Hunger Games that goes along with it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have the ability to do that.
Yeah. Corporate America, the corporate side of corporate America is, it definitely can rub the shine off of the prettiest gem, that's for sure.
And people don't actually understand that those people that make that magic are killers.
Yeah. 100%. Well, we've said it on the podcast so many times, and it is, and other people will say it about Disney sometimes too, like, and it's not cliche. Like the cast members that you interact with when you're in the parks or when you're at a resort or when you're on the cruise, those people are where it's at. Yep. And they're amazing. They're so fantastic. And I only wish that I could have seen you with 20 or 30 people around you, just joking around with your buddy and then get up and leave. Cause I'd be on the floor laughing. That's awesome.
There's engine there, and the engine that Walt Disney World's about the cast members.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's those frontline guys that are whatever point in their life. And some people made that decision to do that for their entire lives and totally respect it and appreciate it. Almost all of them are financially doing what they need to do. But behind the scenes, there's some fun going on there.
Yeah.
And, I used to, when I was at the water parks, I found some capital or some extra money so we could buy a flat top grill and some grills so we could take care of the cast. And I would say once a month, I would be out there at 6 in the morning flipping pancakes just to make sure that those people had the drive to get through their day.
Yeah.
And on the same standpoint, then I had to go deal with corporate to explain why our numbers are good or bad. And they don't necessarily understand that. And that's the hard part, because with everything in context is always interesting, right? So everybody has their abilities and skill sets.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say that even some of my friends that still work there, it's still there. But it's troublesome when you have to deal with a company and bring all of that into context for someone that doesn't have a context. It's hard.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to end off. Alicia usually does this, but since she's in Paris, whatever, lame, loser.
I didn't get the good questions, though. Where's my 10 questions?
That's what we're doing
Where's my
right
10
now.
questions?
We're doing it. Let's do it.
I need another beer. But yeah, go ahead. I'm still online.
All right, fair enough. From the world of Disney, so this includes all the mainline Disney stuff, Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, all the good stuff. What's your favorite character? I have a funny feeling I know because of your email address that I'm not going to make public, but I have a funny feeling I know. But who's your favorite character?
I'm a firm believer there should be a Fab 6.
There you go.
Pluto.
Yeah.
Stitch. I'm not going to show the tattoo, but I can show the tattoo.
If people want to see the tattoo, they're going to have to find you and buy you a couple beers.
Yeah. So, and then absolutely Moana. Because you know what? At the end of the day, we need to challenge ourselves every single day to see how far we can go.
Who would have thought you're a good old softie?
Still there? Yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
Oh, how much trouble can I get in here?
Depends on your answer.
It's Aladdin.
Okay.
Of all the Disney movies about a dude, not this new stuff with Will Smith, and I can swear a lot here. It's about a dude. Because you never know when you're a diamond in the rough. Somebody needs to encourage that. It's not the beauty of the Lion King, of that big old sun coming up the video, and we didn't know if it was real or not. But Aladdin, you know what? And it's not even good for the Arabian Nights if you actually read the books, which I have. But yeah, it's Aladdin, hands down.
I know you're not big on the rides anymore, but back in the day, what was your favorite ride?
Hands down, Disneyland in California, Pirates.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Walt Disney World, Park Bench.
If you had to choose Disneyland or Disney World?
Oof. So, I remember, if we go early on to my story tonight, I remember the day and all the expectations of my parents. Yes, I love Walt Disney World till I'm blue in the face. First time I ever went to Disneyland, actually, I bought my season pass, and I lived about 7 or 8 hours away in Santa Cruz. 6, 5.5, depending on what time you go. The 5 is a nightmare, even in Washington where you live. First day I walked from Disneyland, When You Wish Upon a Star came on as I was going through underneath. And that's the thing when I was a kid that I firmly believe in. Because that was, the opening for, Wonderful World of Disney and half the other stuff. So I'm going to have to go with Disneyland. It's a tough one.
It's got that special place in your heart.
It does, because there's so many things that go in there.
Yep.
My dad, my mom, my brothers, my sisters, and I had the opportunity to take them to Walt Disney World. It was never the same. And I didn't get to see that, but it's Disneyland.
In Florida, what's your favorite park?
Oh, Epcot, hands down. Alcohol, please.
What's your favorite hotel or resort?
I'm going to go with Fort Wilderness.
Ooh, okay. Why is that?
I remember when I was a kid, my parents, the first time we came to Disney, and actually stayed at Disney, I got a little pass. where I could spend, my $10 a day that my parents allotted.
Uh-huh.
I had a bike, and I could ride all around. I could go to the 2 or 3 different pools they have and just experience things differently. There's a freedom there that doesn't exist necessarily in all the other resorts. And I know I'm dating myself, but it's amazing when you're a little kid and your parents, not little, I was like 10 years old, but they could just let you go.
Mm-hmm.
You could do your own thing and make your own choices. And then as an adult, judging the Christmas concepts, the different Christmas decorations and everything else that I did as an adult. So I'm going to go with Fort Wilderness.
What's your favorite Disney Cruise Line ship?
Oh, Wonder.
Yeah.
Next.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Favorite restaurant? You're a foodie. You know how all the food stuff works. You're a mean chef yourself.
Can I go back to the OG?
Yeah.
The menu or
You.
Plaza Pavilion?
Oh.
Yeah. So at the end of the main street, when you hang a right, beyond the ice cream shop to the right, Plaza, they used to make this marinated grilled chicken cordon bleu sandwich.
Oh.
Oh, to die for. To die for. So when I had my office above the candy store called MO5, yeah, we would go there probably once, twice a month. So good. So good. To this day, and I'm a pretty good chef, I have not figured out that marinade. It's so simple. It's basically some salt, fat, and acid.
Yeah.
There's books about this, and she's amazing too, by the way, if you want to read that book. But, never figured it out. Never figured it out. Lifelong quest. I'm going to figure it out one of these days.
Well, when you do, let me know because I'll be on a plane.
Will do.
And lastly, what's your favorite snack in the parks?
So this is an interesting one. I think it's two of things, right? So if I'm in Disneyland, those magical pickles.
Ooh, okay.
Those magical pickles you can get. Those are amazing.
Uh-huh.
We don't got that here in Florida.
Uh-uh.
And sadly enough, the guys that do the pickles in California don't ship. Just telling you. If anybody's got a website, let me know. It's kind of funny because, it's funny. Like when I used to be a season pass holder in California, caramel apples were a big deal. They didn't do them every day.
Yeah.
But you come here to Florida, we got them all the time. So in Florida, caramel apple with peanuts. If you get one in California, it's like total straight up magic. But it's also the pickles.
Bill, thank you so much for being on the show. I feel
Not a
like
problem.
we've edited a few things.
We're gonna edit, yeah.
We've avoided a few topics. But really talking about Disney with you, whether it's here today or more often than not, it's on your back porch with a couple beers and it's 2:00 in the morning. I've just, seeing the world through your eyes has just been amazing, and I can't wait to do it again real soon.
177.
What is 177?
Well, this is 77th episode, so we just got to keep the trend up.
Okay, got it.
The number in the front doesn't matter. You should have went with 6, though. I'm just saying, because, 6 was my Matra log on, so all that POS stuff I talked about, it would have been better. And if anybody asked me a question, actually, you might know this. When you ask me a question and my first answer is always 6,
Yeah.
that's why.
That's awesome.
But it's fine. We're going to go with 77 now.
All right.
I got to add one, whatever.
We'll see you in 100 episodes.
There you go. Hey, continued success. You guys keep on doing this because you know what? If it helps one person, 10 people, 30 people, it doesn't really matter.
Yep.
The fact that you guys are doing your thing is all that matters. Minus the boss not being here this week because I got grilled from both sides, but that's okay.
Well, I mean, worst case scenario, we'll have like at least a week to do this in person in December, and then she can just grill you all you want.
So I might be like shifting vacation days. This might actually happen, but I don't know if me and your dad on a cruise ship is a good idea.
Okay. Yeah, that's a whole different podcast episode. You and my dad for graduation weekend was that was a sight to see. That was fun. All right, thanks again, Bill. We'll talk to you soon. As I'm sitting here recording this after hanging up with Bill, and yes, we talked for about another 15 or 20 minutes after I hit the stop button. I just, man, whatever you do, go find a Bill in your life. Because dudes like that are pretty awesome. And everybody needs a Bill in your life. Your Bill may not be the same as my Bill. Actually, for most people, I hope your Bill isn't the same as this Bill. But honestly, couldn't ask for a better friend. And yeah, it's pretty awesome these last 6+ years doing life with these with the crew and with Bill and Rachel and everybody else. And yeah, it's a bummer that Alicia wasn't on this one, but rest assured, we've had a lot of these conversations, and we'll have many more too. And episode 177, Bill's already called it. He's got to be back, so it'll be a biannual thing. We'll have Bill on. Anyhow, like Bill, at this point, he's moved on from Disney. Alicia and I, we're also not affiliated with Disney. We're not travel agents either. So we can offer our opinions and suggestions, but we obviously recommend reaching out to Disney if you have any questions or working with a special travel agent to plan your perfect vacation. If you have any questions or suggestions or would like to be interviewed on our show to share your Disney experiences, please send an email to podcast@ourmousecapades.com. Go ahead and give us a follow on social media. We're at Our Mousecapades. And go ahead and give us a rating and review in the podcast app. That really helps the algorithm send people our way. Thanks for listening. We'll be in your ears next week.
Thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.